Hey folks, Quill18 here, and welcome to another League of Legends commentary. Today I will be playing as Skarner, but for most of the start of the game, I want to be talking about team composition a little bit. Now, first, it's very important if there's a Heimer to call him out and taunt him, because seriously, that much sexiness not allowed. This is a normal mode, very mid to low elo game, not very competitive or skillful or anything like that. Which means if you're a noob, you should hopefully get a lot of value out of this, because if you're a noob, you want to watch noobs and learn from their mistakes. Learning how the pros play is helpful for some things, but sometimes only gives you an incomplete picture. So, I really like to play support characters. Everyone knows this if you've watched any of my videos. I'm a big fan of Janna. I've been also playing a lot of Soraka lately. I enjoy her quite a bit. And a few others here and there, and of course Heimer just in general because he's such a badass. But, so in these normal queue games, now while I am partnered up with Demonac and Briarstone, who I play with a lot, these two other people are just sort of randoms. And you can see we don't have another jungler on the team. And so rather than playing a support, I feel if everyone else picks non-junglers, non-supports, I feel that a jungler is better as the last character than a support character is. And the reason is the jungler himself doesn't necessarily get that much. Now, I've often said, you know, there's all this XP just sitting here in the woods, you know, all these creep camps. You don't want to let the XP sit there. You want to collect it. You want to have it. But the jungler is not going to come out ahead of anyone in XP, generally speaking. In fact, often you might be slightly behind. You get a lot of last hits. Your creep kills are okay, especially if you have a good jungler character, and Skarner is definitely one such character. The most important thing that having a jungler gives you is having two solo lanes, and we're going to see how much of a big deal that is in this particular game here. So, middle, you generally put your AP characters, so let's take a look at that. If anyone's curious how to jungle, well, I'll keep the camera here for a sec. You get the cloth armor, is usually the way it works, but for Skarner, cloth armor, lots of potions, you get your Q, you beat them down, and you use that smite to finish things off. You start with the blue, you get a leash if you can, especially nice for middle. You just get your mid character to come here, they're all often going to be ranged, hopefully with a spell. Just drop a nuke on Golem, because that way the Golem will first start off trying to walk around this way to get to the other character, and then eventually just start to leech back and aggro on the jungle character. But it means you've taken slightly less damage. It also applies a little bit more damage to the jungle mobs and gives you a slight advantage. Doesn't really cost mid anything. So, the actual advantage of having a jungle character is you have two solos. Your mid character is often your AP, your caster type character goes mid, and then top, you want someone, you need a very specific type of character top. It has to be someone who can hopefully get lots of last hits, who is sustainable, who won't have to go home quickly, because he has to stay there and farm. Also, should have a good escape mechanism, and Gangplank does have that in his ability to just eat his citrus fruit and escape from some CC, heal a little bit, and just get that sort of survivability and safety, because you may have to withstand a gank from the enemy team's jungle, although in this case that's not what's happening. Now, what's happening in this particular game is Briarstone, my friend here, was feeling like things were going very poorly. He's up against two people in his lane instead of one because the enemy team doesn't have a jungler, and that's quite hard to come up from. He's having a hard time getting last hits. Arguably, you know, there may have been more ways for him to get last hits here, but we're not going to go into that. What's still important is he's still getting a lot of XP, and that brings up one of the other criteria I feel for a solo character, is it should be someone who has a very potent ultimate. Because you get, and we're going to talk about this turret thing in a little while, in a second as well. Because you're going to get your level 6 quite a bit faster than anyone who's in a dual lane. And so hopefully you have an ultimate that every time it's up, you want to set up a gank and use it and get something significant done with that. And Gangplank's ultimate is pretty good. It's global, he can help out anywhere. You know, as soon as he hits level 6, he should call it out. Someone should get off a gank, even if Gangplank isn't physically there. And so that's what's going to happen here. Hopefully he's going to get an XP advantage. Hopefully he's going to stick around long enough to get that done. Meanwhile, these other two guys are having to split their farm, and assuming that Gangplank was getting good farm, and he's not this game. He's only got one creep kill at this point, which is really far from ideal. He's even got a mana regen item. He should hopefully be getting a lot more with a Q. But you know, let's not stress about that. he's still getting a lot of XP, and these guys are not, and they're having to split their gold. So they're slightly at a disadvantage. Ashe is actually a really good potential option for... Yeah, we heard all that. Ashe is actually a really good candidate for getting level 6 early. Whoa, bit of an encounter here. However, she actually doesn't tend to have the sort of sustain and escape mechanism necessary to solo top. She's a much better choice for going bottom with a support. This is a really aggressive teleport in by Annie. And I should actually talk about what I was hoping to do here. I knew that Gangplank was having trouble, so I was hoping to finish my primary jungle cycle as quickly as possible. And what my primary jungle cycle is, I hit level 4, go back home, get some boots, go out and get a gank. My skilling order is I get the Q is really important for jungling, and then I get 1 rank of E, because it helps me jungle a little faster to getting the burst. The heal is nice too to keep me topped off in the jungle, and because I have the blue buff, I can spam both these spells pretty freely. Then at level 3 I get a Q, and then finally at level 4 I get my W. And then from that point on I actually focus pretty exclusively on the W, because the speed is really nice. The movement speed is really nice for the ganks. The shield is very nice to make sure I don't get burst down, and the attack speed is just nice in general, whether I'm ganking or jungling. So I wanted to complete 1 cycle of that, get my boots, and then possibly come up and help Gangplank. But at this point, actually, I had to come and sort of help mid, because a triple push is a little much. And if they'd gotten a second tower, we would have actually lost kind of all map control at that point, especially being the middle tower. And they would have gotten a significant gold advantage. So it was important to block that off, even though in general, I would like to sort of just keep these solo characters mid or top, getting a maximum amount of XP, and I would like to continue my jungle routine as much as possible. I'm actually going to run low on mana here. And it's very important, if you can, keep track of the time when you kill this golem. And actually, yeah, you saw me, I was starting to move this way, and then I realized, oh, it's not quite time yet. Because unless I'm mistaken, it's a 5-minute cooldown on their spawn. And I probably killed it around 7:20, 7:30 in this game. I wasn't paying attention. Around 1:10, 1:20 to 1:30, somewhere around there. So you should pop around 7:30 is what I'm keep trying to say. Except I'm saying it wrong. It's the 2-minute mark. Anyway, all that to say, I know that around 7:20, that's when the skull pops up, and I get my blue buff again. My timer, I'm getting it all screwed up. Never do math on live video. It never goes well. But yeah, so I didn't stick around in camp, but actually, except for the fact that this push mid happened, this gank mid, which didn't work out, I would have been sitting here right around the 7:20 mark, waiting for that blue to come up, and then pick it up instantly. Knowing those timers is extraordinarily valuable. Other than that, what am I talking about? Items! Yes! Alright, so the next key jungle item. So I always start with the cloth armor. That's pretty standard jungling. And then building that into a Magic Razor, also extremely common. It's got a proc to deal additional bonus damage to minions, and that's just going to help you jungle that much faster. It also builds into a Wriggle's Lantern, which is very nice for jungling because of the lifesteal. Also just sort of generally nice. Plus, every 3 minutes gives you a free ward, which is really good for vision, which you want as a jungler. You're sort of responsible. In fact, buy those sight wards from time to time. Do not get yourself ganked, and part of not getting ganked is having map awareness, plus it also helps out all of your teammates as well. So I like the Wriggles for all kinds of reasons. Now, if they're having a team that looks like it's going to be very tanky in the late game, I might not upgrade to a Wriggles. I might just keep it as a Magic Razor and then upgrade to a Blood Razor later on for those procs based on max HP, which is very good against tanky type characters. So I tried to use my ultimate there to pull her back. I can't pull her back that much. It's only 1.75, and I always have a hard time knowing exactly when that's going to run out. So sometimes I end up dragging people, and then I just keep walking away from them after the drag finishes. So I tend to drag just a little bit and then fight them a little bit more. Later on, when you've got higher movement speeds and durations are different and all these things, then you can pull them back much more noticeably. And movement speed is a huge theme with Skarner. I feel that it's very important on him, and thus we come to the discussion of boots. If we look at the recommended items for Skarner, you can see he's got Merc Treads put in there. And that's a perfectly fine recommendation. These recommendations are always fine for all the champions. They're never necessarily optimal, but they'll work out fine if you're not really an expert with the character and things like that. They're reliable and safe and usually very easy to use. And so it's worth considering the Merc Treads just from that point of view, as they're a fine choice. And the thing with Skarner is, I feel that his movement rate is very important. Hello, a little bit of a catch there, maybe. Because he needs to be able to walk up to people and melee them. He needs to be able to land some hits with Crystal Slash to be able to slow them from there. Also, maybe I've got the red buff, which slows people down. It does still slow people, right? Yeah, slows them. And of course, you need to be able to land your Impale and grab people. So you really have to be able to close the distance and kill people like Heimer whenever you want. And so, yeah, movement is important. So I actually quite like to get the Boots of Swiftness, the Speed 3 boots, to help close in melee combat. There's also something to be said about Boots of Mobility for getting that initial hit and just really being more mobile and ganky around the map. I don't usually get it, but some people might want to chime in at this point and discuss what kind of boots they get and if there's some value in getting Boots of Mobility on Skarner. And then there's a situation of, well, these Merc Treads. And in this particular game, if I recall correctly... Oh, God, I'm going to die for no reason here. Oh, shield myself, shield myself. Yes. Do not die to the Ignite. Oh, thank God. All right. I was looking at this team comp and saying, all right, so we've got slows and slows and slows and slows. And... Heimer doesn't slow, although he can potentially stun or blind with his grenades. Oh, actually, his ice turrets do slow, and oftentimes I get a Riley Scepter when I play Heimer, so I assume that most Heimers do as well. So they got a little bit of slow. I don't like that, and I'd like to be able to cancel that out somewhat so that it can more reliably close. Also, there's a chance I'm going to be hit by one of Ash's arrows, and that would be entirely ungood. The blind is less than great as well. So sure, I think I get Merc Treads at this point. Also, I'm seeing a fair amount of AP being built. Or I will. Yeah, there we go. Merc Treads, see? So I see 3 AP characters, and Ashe and Olaf, the physical characters, are both negative right now. So I'm not feeling particularly threatened by them. Seems like a good way to go. I don't think, even if I were seeing a hell of a lot of AD characters, like physical damage characters, I don't think I would ever get the Ninja Tabbies. I would mostly just say, okay, I don't need Merc Treads, I'll get Boots of Swiftness, and then I'll pick up some Thornmail. Pretty much. Now, this brings me to the discussion of the third item. These, Rhaegal's Lantern and then the upgraded boots, very standard first 2 picks for me on Skarner. The third item, which I'm not going to get this time, because in this particular game I'm experimenting, but I feel should really be... Oh, almost got Ashe into the Gangplank ultimate, didn't quite reach, and I think she's going to get away, which is kind of frustrating. Third item should probably be Sheen, because Skarner has such spammy ability. Specifically, his Q is such a short cooldown, especially if you happen to be packing the blue buff. It is ridiculously short, that you're going to proc Sheen really often and increase your auto attack damage significantly. So I feel that that's a must-have. I don't get it this game because I decided to experiment with something, but I think that is a mistake. But you gotta experiment, you gotta try different things. So that's the third item. And then the question becomes, what do you build as your fourth item, or potentially your first big item? And at that point, what I try to look at is, how am I doing personally? What's my score like? How are we doing in terms of the game? What does the enemy team have, and what does our team have? If I feel that I'm doing very well, you know, maybe I've gotten a few ganks off, maybe I'm like a 3-0 type game, you know, oh, that's a really good start, or the other team's just generally not done great, or maybe we've got some tanky people on our team, and we do have a Nautilus this time who often builds as a very good initiator and kind of tanky, so that's possible, but in this particular scenario, I felt like, well, Twitch is generally really squishy, doesn't have an escape mechanism. Gangplank does have an escape mechanism, but is not very tanky this build. You can build a tanky Gangplank, but our Gangplank was going to build very, very aggressive. And Annie, generally very aggressive as well without an escape mechanism. So I thought, okay, we do need someone a little bit more tanky. But if that's not the case, and if I'm in position to snowball, I get a Trinity Force. Because it's, you know, it's kind of... Trinity Force gets a lot of flack. But it works fairly well with a lot of Skarner's thing. Maybe the slow on the Phage is not really necessary, since I kind of already have that in terms of my Q. But other than that, like you are spamming a lot. The Sheen's really good. Well, the Infinity or the Trinity Force kind of just keeps up with that. Plus, gives you a little bit of extra movement speed via the whatchamacallit, the Zeal. Right, you get some movement speed there, and in fact, slightly more movement speed when you build Trinity Force. And again, I feel like movement speed is a really important theme on Skarner, so it's pretty good. If that's not the case, which is I didn't feel was the case this time. I didn't need to be like the snowbally, aggressive ganker type person. I needed a little more tank. Then, if they have a lot of physical damage, it's a no-brainer that I build myself a Thornmail. The armor helps your survivability a lot, plus the reflected damage is extraordinarily powerful. I also feel that Skarner generally plays really well as an initiator or a frontline guy. You're the guy who keeps kind of threatening to run forward and grab people, and that means you need to be near the front, which means you're opening yourself up to some damage. So being tanky that way is really, really, really helpful. You're going to be getting that first hit as you run in and grab people, assuming you're building that sort of thing, and I think Skarner lends himself well to that. So I do like to be tanky. So Thornmail is very good. If it's mostly magic damage, then depending on the nature of it, a Force of Nature is probably a pretty good option. I don't know if I've ever built one on Skarner, although I feel like it's only a matter of time before I do. Again, movement speed, hey, it's awesome. The regen's actually pretty good if you keep going and poking out and taking a little bit of poke yourself. Then the health regen is actually kind of nice, and of course the magic resistance. I also really like the Banshee's Veil. Is really nice. It doesn't actually give you that much resistance, but because it does shield you from a spell outright, it's pretty nice. And of course, if people on their team tend to have long range sort of disables and things like that, then the Banshee's Veil becomes valuable for a whole other thing. If you're ever facing an Ashe or a Blitz, then the value of Banshee's Veil goes up considerably. And there's a few other champions like that, but those are the really obvious ones. These really long-range initiations that can really make you have a bad day if they land and you don't have a bubble around you. Other than that, this game, I'm going to be trying something a little bit experimental. I do skip the Sheen, which is a mistake this game, but then I go into a Sunfire Cape. For that sort of reason, I want to be kind of tanky and survivable, but I'm also going to be getting into the middle of things a lot, and so the extra passive AoE damage might be really good. I'm already doing some good AoE damage and sort of just, yeah, I don't know. That and the Blitzcrank, or not, the Gangplank ultimate, just generally applying a lot of splash. I'm not convinced that it was the right move, but I figured it was worth trying. I feel like Sunfire Cape might be better as the sort of maybe next item down the line, after I've already gotten something else. Maybe I've gone Trinity Force and then I want to build some more tank, but still sort of keep a little bit of that aggression going. Well, maybe the Sunfire Cape's a good idea at that point. Or I've gotten that Thornmail, and you know what? They've got like a 10-1 Tryndamere or something, and I want more armor. Then Sunfire Cape does give some armor. I guess that's something. Plus, if I'm chasing him down and waiting for his ultimate to wear off when he's at 1 hit point, well, then maybe the Sunfire will get a kill. I don't know. You know, sort of ideas. Or I've gone and built a Banshee's Veil, and maybe also gotten a Merc Shreds because they've got some casters and some CC, and then I've decided, okay, I don't really need any more MR. I want to be a little more tanky, but I don't really need any more MR. Then maybe I'll go the Sunfire just to add some armor, and yeah, I don't know. It feels hard to justify. Like, it's you know, there are things that are tankier, and there are things that are more DPS-y. Although I suppose the AoE damage is worth something. I don't know. It was an easier decision before they nerfed the Sunfire, but now it's so heavily nerfed. That teleport might have actually ruined a gank there, or stupid stealth mode. Oh, there's no tower there. Wow, you are so dead, Timo. And Ari, probably. I don't know why you decided to come. Or are you going to be able to get out? I guess you had your flash, and that counts for a lot. Oh, I wish I could see their health more reliable. Oh, I guess I can. Ish. Nope, she's fine. Anyway, that's about it for the item discussion. In terms of things like Masteries and Runes, I wish I could see it in-game, but I don't think I can. I suspect I'm using a 9-21-0 build for this. almost certainly a 9-21-0 build for as my jungling masteries, and I'm probably using a kind of a physical damage rune page, which is mostly armor pen. I believe that attack speed is actually the most optimal, generally speaking, if you're a jungler, but I don't have attack speed runes. I only have armor pen runes, so that's what I run. Probably that and magic regen, mana regen, because I'm pretty hard on mana, almost always, and I don't tend to play energy characters much, so the mana regen tends to be worthwhile. I really should spend more IP on runes and get some extra rune pages as well. And I'm playing a lot more League of Legends these days, so hopefully I'm going to get enough IP to do that. I really wish there was an option to just pay to unlock everything, because especially as a caster who wants to put in a lot of variety. Like, as a player, I never really cared. It's the perfect model for a player. You know, you just get a few characters that you really want for free. And if you're willing to spend money, of course you can. But as a caster, I really want to be able to showcase, like, all the champions all the time and put in lots of variety. But I can't afford to unlock everything, unfortunately, which kind of sucks. Maybe if I get, like, 1,000... Is it 1,000 referrals or 5,000 referrals? Then they unlock everything? Ugh. Ugh. That's so much. Anyway, I feel like this game is probably wrapping up at this point. Well, I mean, it's not 100%. There's definitely a possibility, because these are still newbie level games, right? We could have a really bad engagement on our team, lose a big team fight, and then fall horribly behind, because, you know, we could give up 5 kills, lose a tower, and maybe even lose Baron or something like that, and then all of a sudden we're in a really, really bad position. But I don't think that's what happens this game. And I know it's like, oh, it ruins it, but I'm not showing people these games to do commentary on something that was, like, really interesting and lots of back and forth necessarily. Sometimes I do, but generally I'm here to talk about the strategy, which is why I don't do the play-by-play. I talk about builds more often than anything. So if you're looking for something else, I'm really sorry. Although, you shouldn't be looking at these low-level games anyway. If you want, like, interesting games to watch, then you go and watch the, like, actual League of Legends tournaments that get played at, like, IEM and stuff like that, and get pro commentators and pro players, and God, some of those games are so good. Although, I am really disappointed. We had a really amazing game the other day. It was beyond words. We were having a hard time. We got owned at the start. And, our Tryndamere kept disconnecting. Like 3 times he disconnected. It was just horrible, horrible, horrible. Because Tryndamere is one of the most important characters if you've got him. He's one of the hardest carries in the game. He's got to get tons and tons and tons of farm and just, like, sort of dominate late game. And he disconnected 3 times. And for one of it was like 4.5 minutes. Like, it was a really long disconnect, whatever it was. I don't know what it was, but it was really long. He comes back. He's like 6 levels under everyone else. It's just like, oh, this is so, we're screwed. Right? Turns into like an hour and 10-minute long game, and still so far behind, but we start scraping our way to, like, almost a semblance of parity. But, you know, we lost all our towers. I think we lost an inhibitor. It was horrible. And then, yeah, lost the inhibitors, and yeah, we're still down kills. I'm trying to remember. We were down kills, down towers, lost an inhibitor, so bad, under-leveled, underfed. They go for Baron. After mostly wiping our team, except Tryndamere, who's jungle Tryndamere, he had a smite. And I think I'd placed, yeah, I had placed a ward down here. He comes over, he smite steals the Baron. And survives. I can't remember if he did it from behind. I don't think he did, though. I think he came in from this side. We may not have had a ward inside. He may have come in from this side, smited the Baron, and then gotten out, flashed through the wall. It was one of the most incredible moves I'd seen in this level of play before. It was so awesome, beyond words, and that enabled us to go and win the next team fight, and then push and get an inhibitor of our own, and just from there on win the game. And after the game, everyone on both teams were like, holy crap, this was the most awesome game. And I'm saying in chat, like, I'm still going to post this, come to my channel, you guys were awesome, like, well played, I'm going to post this. And the LOL recorder software didn't actually successfully capture the game. I was so disappointed. Listen, Riot, you really have to get replay functionality properly into the game, because this is so frustrating. It's been like 2 years now. No built-in replay functionality. What the hell? So fed up. Anyway, there's that story. Let's take a look at everyone else's items. Yeah, you can see I've got the Sunfire Cape. I finally got a Sheen, which I should have gotten earlier. Rod of Ages on Nautilus. Plus, looks like a Frozen Heart is probably being built. Gangplank is just damage. Manamune, interesting. Very interesting. I'm not sure if the Manamune is actually a good choice on Gangplank. I'm not sure what's the standard build on him. I don't play him, so I can't really comment. And cooldown reduction boots. Oh, so he's just going for a really high spammy Q and always have enough mana for an ultimate kind of thing. Plus reduce cooldown on the ultimate. That's actually kind of interesting. Twitch, yeah, Black Cleaver. Pretty standard on Twitch. Boots of Mobility. Very nice if you're playing a gankery type build. I'm betting that Berserker Greaves probably not horrible on him either, but I suspect he probably wants the gank more. I'm 100% sure I'm going to initiate on Heimer here. Oh, the Gangplank ultimate not quite lined up. I'm going to try to drag him in here. And don't quite pull it off, and there's Ashe coming in with her arrow. This Ashe was not doing very well in their team. Yeah, 0-7, not very good. But did manage to get a few good arrows off, which is really all you need to do as Ashe. But it's pretty bad. Oh, I remember being... Really? Warmogs? Really? Wow. I remember being confused at one point with Annie, because she got her needlessly large rod. Like, that's a hell of a lot of money to save up for one item, right? You've just got one cheap Doran's ring, your boots, and a needlessly large rod. That's expensive. And then I remember seeing she had a Giant's Belt, and I was like, well, what the hell are you building? Like, why aren't you finishing an item? I guess she figured this is enough AP, and then I'm going to build Warmogs for tankiness. She was playing really aggressive and kept overextending. It was really, really weird. I feel like if you're an Annie and you want to be more tanky, rush a Rod of Ages. It gives you a good amount of survivability, but it's not stupid. I mean, I guess this is a great build if it's going to be a 50-minute long game, you know, and you're going to get to charge the Warmog. And the Warmog is a lot better than it used to be when I used to hate on it all the time, but it's still pretty stupid. I mean, let's be honest. Like, in this particular scenario, we're so far ahead, and the game's about to end. You know, you just, maybe, I don't know. That is, I believe that's just it's not a reactive build. She's not reacting to the situation, I don't think. Because if you felt like you were threatened, you know what? Get a couple more Doran's Rings. Yeah, it's not as much health as the Warmogs, but it's a pretty good amount of health pretty early on. She could have had it ages ago and still had her AP. Gives you just enough to survive some random bursty crap, which is all you need for someone like Annie. I don't think that makes a lot of sense. Oh, and then the rest of the build from the other team. Heimer, I'm not sure the Chalice is what I would go for, because I feel like the AP really works out a lot better. You know, gives you more poke with the rockets, but I'm not sure what his build is. I don't think he went heavy rockets, because I remember seeing him use his grenades quite often, which I think is a mistake. I do like mana regen, but if I want the mana regen, usually I'll go for Tear the Goddess instead. And I usually find that that's enough regen. And then you can build it into an Archangel, which means it's got more of a late game point. But Chalice does give you really nice regen if you're spamming a lot, and because the Chalice's regen scales, which based on how much mana you're missing. So if you're spamming a lot, it rewards you. But do you really want to be spamming that often? I don't know, maybe you do. It just leads to different gameplay. I guess that's fine. I'll try not to critique. So we trade Dragon for a turret here. Meh. It's pretty much equivalent, but we're able to come around, and this was a constant theme I found this game, is we would effectively all be MIA. They didn't seem to be warding very often. There wasn't a lot of indication that they had a lot of vision on the map. So we were effectively MIA quite often to them when they went ahead and overextended past the river, and then we come around and kill them. And I think that was a pretty big mistake. We're not like the poster child of wards in this particular game, but there's still some warding going on. I know that Demonac on Nautilus here was buying a fair number of wards. I know that I bought a few wards, plus I was trying to pay attention to the cooldown on my Wriggles, which I'm sure wasn't always perfect, not quite as much vision as we could have taken. That is a risky initiation here with 4 on 3. I'm going to try to come in as quickly as possible. Luckily their Ashe is really squishy, so we burn her down as quickly as possible. And yeah, I guess luckily our Annie is really tank. I guess. And most of the game she'd been playing really, really aggressively, so I'm sure that Warmogs is a reaction to her, like, doing a lot of stuff in a lot of games and then dying and being like, no, I need to be tougher and build Warmogs. But I think the real problem is she just plays way too aggressive, and if she was a little more cautious, she could instead afford to get a lot more AP. And there's the concede. I hope you enjoyed this game. I didn't bring up the score tab on time, so we don't get to have a score tab in this final screen, which I think is kind of weird. So you'll have to scroll back in the video if you want to see the last time it was up, but there you have it. I hope you enjoyed this commentary, and I will see you guys next time.